Hello, everyone, again. Couple minutes there, but we're back in, and we're going to start talking about the Île-de-France region for future organizations and enterprises, dynamic and innovative, who wants to settle part of their business or to create business opportunities with other enterprises here. One of the communication, let's say, guidelines that the region is sending out is to show the Paris region as being the new or the future Silicon Valley in Europe. And why is this? Because according to the Région Île-de-France, the future will be on new businesses who are fostering innovative approaches or innovative artificial intelligence. If you in getting a deeper knowledge about what is today being promoted in Région Île-de-France, if this is not your area, don't stress. There are other opportunities. We'll get back to them in a couple of minutes. But first, I want to talk to you about this, that it's called FINAL2, created in France, and who aims at identifying young enterprises. They can be French enterprises, or they can be foreign startups who are products or new services for companies to develop a new, is willing to support this kind of initiatives by up to 100,000 euros. And if your project or your business is innovative enough, it could be selected to be a part of the Paris Region Smart Week, who's having a place every year since a couple of years ago now. And it is like a big salon in which all the innovative small and medium-sized enterprises are getting future development that is expected for them. So again, Innovap Proto, that's the specific program, specifically aimed at people who have already a business and who wants to new service to finance the prototyping of this product. So if you want to develop your prototype, you need to send an application to the Innovap Proto program, and you may get euros. And of course, at the Paris Region Smart Weeks, who is taking place every year. Okay, if you are innovative and economical landscapes, you should also take a look at Paris Region Starter Pack or artificial intelligence programs, which are also very much promoted now. But if you are not a part of those who are thinking about creating new services related to technologies, you can also get help and support the Région Île-de-France on their general program, which is called Entrepreneur #Leaders. You'll have the link in the presentation. This is a program that it's an enterprise in. You have to have your own created to benefit program. The only thing that you need is to have an idea, a legal status in Paris or in France or in the Région Île-de-France, and the motivation to integrate a program that lasts up to 7 months, in which you'll be able to connect with people, experts, counsel, accountability, on management, on communication, on marketing. The idea is that you'll be able to full business plan and a business model who will then give you the opportunity to go and seek for financing. So if you remember at the beginning of this presentation, we said that one of the basic reasons why people do not want to become entrepreneurs, besides the let's say time-consuming dynamic that can be linked to creating your own enterprise, the other reason was financing. So considering that the region of Île-de-France is financing probably the most expensive part, is to the region a thumbs up, let's say, it now existing, because in this specific program, which only costs euros, that is 70 euros, you to 7 months, and then you can have the opportunity to test your project idea by exchanging with professionals, exchanging with counselors, exchanging with business angels, and more importantly, exchanging with experts in each specific domain of a business creation, which is accountability, marketing, communication, management, and so forth. So if you want to, if you have a good idea that you've been thinking about for a while, and you are now ready to invest, you need to invest in order to develop your idea, becoming an entrepreneur in Île-de-France might be a good idea, because you can get this support, again, for up to 7 months in order to create a business model, and then you'll be able to get eventually financing if the idea is good and if you achieve on seducing financiers, right? But I do believe that the accompaniment to is probably one of the expensive things to find, especially if you are looking for something that it's qualitative and experience-based. And this program has these two things, plus it's not expensive. So I think it's a good program for everyone who is just thinking about becoming an entrepreneur. Okay, there's other kind of aids, other kinds of supports for entrepreneurs. Sometimes international partners are surprised, because since becoming an entrepreneur, it's a private project, it is private initiatives. But this is really actually common. Most of the big companies that we all know were financed by public at a certain level of their development or their growth. And that is why, if we go back to the conversation about taxes, if you are in a country in which you pay taxes, it is more likely that you'll also be in a country in which you can have sector, which is a good way to finance. Not the best one, especially if you see, for instance, in Région Île-de-France, they will do non-refundable so that you can. Okay, so I only went into a little bit of detail photo industry, the one about prototyping. That's an open call for everyone who has an enterprise and wants to develop a prototype. But there are other programs such as InnovUp Feasibility, InnovUp Development, InnovUp Experimentation. So I will invite you to go into the link that is in the slide and try to these programs to see which one is the most adapted to you, knowing that all these programs are somehow related to social, environmental, or economic innovation. Okay, there is also by the Chamber of Commerce by other international organizations, and you can find all the links related to this kind in the slide. I will move forward to these incubators, which are more and more present in Paris. There are up to 600 incubators only in Paris nowadays. And if we take into account the whole region, I think that we can easily go up to 1,000 incubators. And if you think about it, that's a big entrepreneurship ecosystem. At least in each of these incubators, there's 5 or 10 projects who are actually being developed nowadays, which means that there are up to 10,000 projects, 10,000 entrepreneurs just like you, who are now thinking about developing or growing their business thanks to these incubators. Just as the other programs, in France, you can find incubators that are public, or there are public finance, and you can also have. So it is up to you to think about which is the best to integrate this kind of incubators. The basic idea that we want to stress is that we have seen that entrepreneurs are more likely to succeed on their entrepreneurial journey if they are not isolated. Associated just when you have hesitations or doubts or just questions, that's just fine. But if you don't, then going to an incubator can be a good idea. And the other reason why you should not be isolated is that you can not only not be isolated, but you can be surrounded by people who share your same passion, the same economic dimension, and who might be really useful as resources to better, let's say, think and reflect about your own project idea. So that's the probably the most interesting part to me about incubators, other entrepreneurs, and then you can learn from their own experience. Knowledge transfer goes horizontally, and the experience of being a part of a group of entrepreneurs, it's really exciting and helps a lot, especially if you're starting your own business by yourself. So if you're in, you have the public funding, you have the public, these incubators in which you can spend all the days of work that you need to spend to develop a proper business model. Okay, just to finish, before a small conversation about cross-cultural communication, do not forget that you will have to keep in mind what are your goals, what are your ambitions, and what is it that you are good to do, right? So you need to be really clear about your project idea. Being an entrepreneur is a state of mind, and don't let disencouragement or hesitation to be an obstacle. Those things will appear in the journey, because if you are not a psychopath, that means that you will have doubts, and that's just fine. But it's better to be surrounded with people who is dynamic, say project. A lot of people speak English. You will notice that in France, a lot of people just speak yours, but there is also a practice. French is let's say, a language that is spoken by almost 1 billion people on Earth, and this is something that very often there is entrepreneurs who are living now in Région Île-de-France, and they are coming people's migrants, but English, and their mother tongue is a different language, and they know perfectly how to speak French. So all, and even though be able to succeed your journey if you speak only English, it is strongly to have at least the fundamentals of the French, that you can interact at a different level, that social and English persons, a friend based environment, which is the notion of, I don't know if you notion, but sometimes I've noticed that a lot of people are interacting with French in a professional setting, because there is a lot of what sometimes is called a protocol. There's a lot of things that you need to do and respect. Is possible. It might sometimes be just a gentle way of signing before even interacting with an individual. If you don't, might be, I know for sure that most of the time it's not, because in other cultures it is not necessary. Politesse, this whole protocol, in order to enhance a conversation. But in France, important, and nobody will tell you that you are non-poli, that you are not polite to this, but everyone will think about it. So you might try to be last. It is understand is that becoming an entrepreneur today in France might link you somehow specific way of looking in France, which is a country in which politics are really, I mean, people are talking about politics in cafes, in restaurants, even in family dinner. It's a taboo or something that it's occupy in the culture in general. And doing business, perspective. If you are an entrepreneur, most likely you're linked. Do not mean that perspective. So, I encourage you to do this for all the reasons that I've detailed in this presentation. Here, investing a lot of money in new project, in new idea, specific program, your project, and ability to interact with people coming from all over the world and sharing your idea. You almost everywhere now. And I don't know if it will certainly become one of the most regions for entrepreneurs which business. So open now possibility for some questions if someone has a Okay, I think that's it. We're online now. Hello, everyone. I cannot see myself, so I will try to also show who I am a little bit. So you can see me now. My name is Juan Esteban Marcos. I am a collaborator for Elan Intercultural, which is a partner organization of the International Consortium Migrapreneurs. Migrapreneurs is a European project who has been developing different tools and approaches to help highly skilled migrants to become entrepreneurs in Europe. So I don't know if you can all hear me well. So if you are out there, please just write OK or something on the chat box so that we could better know who is there. So hi, everyone. Yes, I can see some people. Good. So as I was mentioning, this webinar will be about presenting some of the interesting perspectives that the French business environment proposes today for migrant entrepreneurs wishing to develop their activities in France, and or for those who wishes to better negotiate, communicate, or even trade with French companies in the Région Île-de-France. So that's the first thing I wanna stress, is that we're gonna focus on the Région Île-de-France, which is the let's say most dynamic from an economical, social, and cultural perspective region in France. And the reason why we are focusing on this specific region is because we know this region better than other regions, because Elan Intercultural is based in Paris. So there are, of course, other interesting regions in France, and maybe if your business is more or less related to other, let's say, dimensions of industry, you might want to take a look to what's happening in other regions. So we're going to focus on what's happening in France, but we are stressing interesting inputs and information about what's happening in the Région Île-de-France, that is Paris and the whole, let's say, surroundings. Okay. So if you are a migrant and you are an entrepreneur, this webinar might be useful for you. And I'm going to try to explain why in a few minutes. And then we're going to move to a specific presentation who will be delivered so that you can have all the informations, links that will help you to develop your business in France and or to better negotiate with France. Okay, I hear voices now. I don't know where these voices are coming from, but I will try to move forward. Okay, so Migrapreneurs project was a project that initiated in 2016, and there is a few organizations in Europe, especially in England, Spain, and Turkey, who are collaborating since and trying to better think what was or what could be the right way to, let's say, foster entrepreneurship among highly skilled migrants. So the basic idea that was at the, let's say, origin of this project is that migrants are, by definition, entrepreneurs, because they certainly already have this entrepreneurship, let's say, DNA, because they've traveled and they went to another country, to another culture, whereas sometimes it's not necessarily a project that it's been motivated by, let's say, desire. Sometimes this can be the result of economical struggling or war in the case of refugees. And sometimes it's just people who are just traveling because they're on Erasmus programs and then they end up falling in love with someone or just falling in love with a culture or just finding a new opportunity and then they just settling in this new environment. So the capacity that these migrants show to adapt to a new environment is one of the fundamental skills that in today's world we're trying to foster among entrepreneurs. So in a way, migrants are already entrepreneurs. And this is the basic, let's say, idea that was somehow guiding us through this whole project. During 3 years, we've been testing different tools. We've been exploring different approaches to help migrant entrepreneurs to develop their business ideas. You can go to migrapreneurs.eu and migrapreneurs.fr if you want to have more information. We also have a doodle with all the necessary tools in case you are a trainer and you want to help migrant entrepreneurs to develop their own business. Don't hesitate in writing us. We can be there for you, whereas you are a trainer or you are a migrant who wishes to develop business. We are based in Sheffield, in the UK, in Paris, in Madrid, and in Ankara. So you have plenty of, let's say, hotspots for migrant entrepreneurship. Okay, so as I was mentioning, one of the basic skills necessary to become an entrepreneur is to have this strength of adapting to new environment and to new ecosystems. So if you are thinking about doing business in France or with France, you might as well want to think about what are the necessary skills to develop your business in another country. And of course, we're going to try by the end of this presentation to focus a little bit on the specifics of French culture, because even though, of course, if you're doing business with France, does not necessarily mean that you'll be doing business with French men or women. It is more likely that you will do business in a Frenchly-like, culturally based environment, and it is necessary to have, let's say, some basic foundation of on what that might mean. Another thing that I want to stress before entering in the presentation is that nowadays it is very, very important for us in Elan Interculturel, but also in France, to, let's say, promote business projects who are based on the Sustainable Development Millennial Goals. So, of course, there are plenty of these millennial goals, but I just want to stress these three basic let's say, elements which need to be taken into account if you want to develop your business in France successfully, which are the social impact, the economical impact, and the environmental impact. These three dimensions need to be taken into account if you want to develop your business in France, and or if you want to do business with France, because these three pillars of the Sustainable Development Goals are really rooted in the new enterprises. And most likely, if you're doing business in or with France, you will try to get in contact with specific organizations who have specific knowledge. And it is also a really good strategy to, let's say, stress that you are in a, let's say, sustainable development based project. Okay, so I'm going to try to show you the presentation that Elan's team prepared for you. I'm thinking about Nirin Su and Anna, who are two of the Elan Interculturel team members who prepared this beautiful presentation for you all. Even though my name is in it, I've done pretty much nothing, but I am the one who will be doing the presentation, and I am the one who knows pretty well what is going on nowadays in the Paris region with entrepreneurship. Okay, now I think that this presentation will also be available in the webinar website, so you can also download it, and if you can't, don't hesitate in writing Elan Interculturel and asking for this presentation, which will be also available, I think, in the Moodle. So don't hesitate. You don't have to write down. That's what I mean. Okay. First thing I want to talk about is about it's about what is entrepreneurship in France. What does it mean to be an entrepreneur in France? Entrepreneur, it's an actually is a word, it's a French word originally, and it means the one who is at the origin or the driving force of any kind of enterprise. So there, in the French culture, for many years, this entrepreneurship, let's say, role model was not really, let's say, foster, or it wasn't really dynamic. Because historically, France is, let's say, more collectivist kind of society in a way, and now it's becoming more and more individualistic society, in which, of course, this ideal of an entrepreneur, it's becoming more and more important. So the reason why I'm saying this is that if you wanted to do business in France, let's say 20 or 30 years ago, and you were to present yourself as being an entrepreneur, that might not be the best idea. Today, the perception of what an entrepreneur has changed so radically that more and more, especially new generations of French, think about becoming an entrepreneur as the, let's say, principle of the fundamental goal on professional life. Basically, the elements that are seducing more and more are the flexibility, right, autonomy, and the fact that you can most likely earn a better wages or a better living by becoming your own boss than by working for someone else. It's like we can even say that from a Marxist point of view, everyone now realize what happens with the surplus of alienation at work, but we won't get into that, right? Okay, what does it mean to become an entrepreneur in France? It means that 70% of entrepreneurs are men and only 30% of entrepreneurs are women, and this is something that is stressing politics in Ile-de-France. So there is a lot of investment for, let's say, fostering women entrepreneurship. And this is also something that applies to migrant women. So if you are listening this webinar, and if you are a migrant and if you are a woman, then you have better chances to succeed on your goal of interacting directly or indirectly with the French economic ecosystem. Okay, nowadays, what's the landscape of entrepreneurial of entrepreneurs in France? Well, nowadays 3 million companies are registered in France, and in 2016 only almost 50,000 enterprises were created, and more than 1 million of self-entrepreneurs status was asked for to the tax agency, which is called URSSAF. We'll get back to that in a minute, which shows that, as I was mentioning earlier, the dynamic of the ecosystem, economically speaking, it's really, really at its best, probably, or at least there is no record of so many enterprises being created in France for, as I was mentioning earlier, also historical reasons, but also because it has changed radically the landscape and the vision of the way an entrepreneur is perceived by society. Okay. When we ask entrepreneurs in France, what are the reasons to become an entrepreneur? We went through those earlier, but there's also reasons why not to become an entrepreneur. And of course, most of the times, the reason why French do not want to become an entrepreneur, it's because there are difficulties in financing. And sometimes it demands a lot of time, a lot of investment. So this might discourage people who are more looking for stability, security, and a really well-organized distinction between personal life and professional life. So if you feel like you are one of these kind of persons, becoming an entrepreneur might not be the best idea for you. But if you are not afraid about not having a clear line drawn between your professional life and your personal life, and if you are not afraid of taking risks, then you might be able to answer to the two major difficulties that today make that people do not want to become an entrepreneur. Okay. Before starting a new business in France, so the Elan Interculturel team tried to summarize one of the few keys that you will need to take into account if you want to start a business in France. And I do believe that these keys are also adapted to those who want to start businesses with French companies. Okay, so of course you have to have a clear project. French culture, but not only French culture, I would say that any kind of a business culture demands that the other one, the stakeholder who is contacting me, has a clear idea of what or she or he wants to do. Then you need to have a really deep and good understanding of what the market looks like. So it's not a good idea to just try to work with people from another country without knowing what is happening in their own economical ecosystem, because you might just not allow them to see to what extent you are motivated to work with them. Of course, the third point is that you have to make yourself be recognized and recognizable in a dynamic ecosystem that can be a challenge, because there's so many initiatives, there's so many entrepreneurs, there's so many things going on that it is hard to know how to make yourself known. But that's pretty much related to marketing, communication, knowing how to pitch, and you can have detailed information about how to present your project in a fast and efficient way by going again to our Moodle and downloading all the material related to pitching and to preparing a good presentation of your project, which leads to point number 4, which is define the company's identity. The idea of a company's identity, it is essential for any kind of organization, but especially if you are trying to do business. People need to be able to identify easily and precisely what is it that you are doing. and try to distinguish what you do from what everyone else is doing. If you achieve this, then you will also achieve the point number 3, which is to make yourself known. And in order to achieve these 2 points, you will have to work on your communication skills. And we will get back to this by the end of this presentation when we're going to talk about cross-cultural communication. Find out about assistance. You won't have to do that because FINAL2 did this for you. So you have all the assistance and all the available programs now in Région Île-de-France in this presentation, and we'll get there in a few seconds. And of course, you have to organize your financing develop to have the customer loyalty. Okay, technical aspect just in a few minutes. If you're European, you already know this. You don't have to do anything specifically to start your own business in France, because there's this European, let's say, pact. If you are only in the Schengen area, but you are not a part of the European Union, such as Switzerland, then there isn't any limitation either. But you might want to be clear about what is going on with taxes in your home country, right? Because taxes in France, and we're going to talk about this in a few minutes, are a specific thing that you need to take into account. So just a copy of your ID, it's enough if you're in Europe on a general basis. If you are not a European citizen and you are not in Europe, you will need to have some sort of permit, and you'll have detailed information in the presentation, but on a general basis, most European countries are keen to welcome entrepreneurs who are investing. If you're not investing because either you don't have the funds or you don't want to invest in the short term, you might want to take some sort of, let's say, administrative pathway to have a permit of residence so that you can work without problems from an administrative point of view while your company is developing. Okay, if you want to live in France, there's a lot of transformations in the past years because of the migrant crisis and the refugee crisis. But if you have a viable project, a feasible project, it is more likely that you will get some sort of visa. But if you have any questions about this, don't hesitate in writing Elan's team. We have a group of experts who will be more than happy to answer to any question. Okay, I will skip this, and we're going to move to the institutions that can or might want to finance your project. So there are 3 kinds of organizations or institutions. There are the national structures of support, there are the financing facilities, and they are, of course, incubators, co-working spaces, pépinières, as sometimes they're called also. And the basic difference between these 3 services is the service that they furnish. Of course, it is not the same to be financially supported that to be actually incubated from in a specific co-working space. We'll get into detail in these 3 categories in a while. Okay, I don't know if you have, I will go back for just a couple of minutes to the presentation. In case anyone has any question, don't hesitate in asking. Okay, I think I will have like a small window who will show up somewhere. Okay. If you have any legal concerns about what is the best status that you can have when you're starting your business in France, I strongly recommend to go to legalstart.fr. Why? There's so many kind of businesses nowadays, services, industries, that it is just impossible to go through each of these specifics. So what I can say is that there are different legal frameworks in which you can insert your company. So in order to be better prepared from a legal point of view, you should go to legalstart.fr, which is an actual startup, which has been created a couple of years ago, and they are proposing online counseling and tools to start your business in France. So don't hesitate. If you say Elan Interculturel, you will have a discount. No, I'm just kidding. You won't have any kind of discounts. There is no partnership with Legal Start, but they have good prices. I can tell you this. Okay. Of course, you will have to be aware of the best legal information and the way you need to prepare to pay for all the contributions and taxes. And in order to do so, I will let you individually go deep into all the different taxes that you will need to pay in France if you settle your enterprise here. It is somehow well known that France, as other European countries, have high taxes. And I will just take a few minutes to, let's say, start let's say a question about why these taxes are there. You can see taxes as a reason to choose where you want to settle your business. This is something that a lot of entrepreneurs are thinking about. Where is the best country to start my business? I want to go to a country in which taxes are not really important, so that I will pay less taxes and then I will earn more money, which sounds from an economical perspective quite reasonable. But if you really think about it, it's not the best decision. And I will try to prove or to demonstrate why. When you're thinking about a country who has no taxes, most of the time you're thinking about a country who has no public services. So if there's no public services, there's a lot of things that are related to creating a business that are not taken into account by the state, which is from a political point of view, the organization that is protecting everyone on a specific territory. So if you are more, let's say, rooted in an environment in which the state is not present, you'll be likely to have to pay for other things that you won't be paying in an environment in which the state is more present. I'm just thinking about social security for your employees, for instance. Certainly, a big part of your taxes goes to social security in France, which is not the case for other European countries. But at the same time, this protects your salaries and your employees. So in a way, you're not just giving money to the state, you're giving money to yourself. And there's another big reason that I believe needs to be taken into account when we are thinking about taxes, is that most of the time these taxes helps to finance other organizations such as yours. So one start looking for all the programs and all the let's say structures that are there willing to help people like you. Why? Because, and I hope this is going to be your story, your success story, your